In this example, we're going to go the opposite way we have been. We're going to start out with the statement and then break it down into its symbolic form. Okay, so here I've got three simple statements. The first one, P, is the statement y is a function of x. Now I'm getting into a little bit of algebra here. You don't even need to know what this represents. We're just going to try to break it down symbolically, but this is the some conditions on what a function is in algebra. For statement Q, it says there is no repeated x value, and for statement R, it says there is a vertical line crossing the graph more than once. Again, you guys don't really need to know what, how this all works. It's really just a matter of trying to translate this final compound statement. So here the final statement is, if y is a function of x, then either there is no repeated x value or there is no vertical line crossing the graph more than once. Okay, it's wordy, it's a sentence, not a run-on sentence. Actually, it's grammatically accurate, but it is definitely wordy and long and all that stuff. But it does convey a message that is put together by these three simple statements and a bunch of connective words. Okay, so what we want to do then is translate this symbolically. And as I look at this, you want to think about, what is the dominant connective? What's a dominant connective? Brain's not thinking here, or working. So the dominant connective in all of this, well, I see a couple of things. I see the if-then, right? That means there's a conditional involved. I also see the either or, that means there's a disjunction involved. I also see some no's in here, okay? And so the no's make me think there's some negations involved, but I've got to be careful because up in my original statements there's a no as well. So I don't want to just assume the negations right away, but let's just take a look at that. This Q says there is no repeated x value. Here there is no repeated x value. That is the statement Q. Here there is a vertical line, da da. Here there is no vertical line, da da. So here is a negation, okay? So that no is actually a negation. So we do have three different operations going on. Operations, I'm thinking math here, not logic. There are three different connectives involved. And so there's a conditional, a disjunction, and a negation. Okay, now what I need to do is link them together and get them in the right order. So the first thing, if you think about the dominance of these statements or these connectives, the most dominant is the conditional. And I don't have any reason to think that that conditional is, or that anything else is set aside in parentheses, or that that's set aside in parentheses, making it less dominant. And so to me, you've got the if statement, and then you've got the then statement, and everything after the word then is all sort of together, right? It's this disjunction. So if I've got an if then, that means my main connective is the conditional statement. Before that, so the first portion there is going to be the P, right? Y is a function of x. I'm going to say P implies, or if P then something. And that something is going to be everything that follows the word then, which is a disjunction. So I'm going to group the rest of this together. It's a disjunction, so that's an or, right? What comes before the or? There is no repeated x value. There's no repeated x value. That's statement Q. What comes after the or? There is no vertical line crossing the graph more than once. Here there is a vertical line, so it's the negation of R, okay? The negation of R. And so now we have all three of our connectives, the conditional, the disjunction, and the negation, all put in place, represented based upon their dominance in the sentence, and their relative dominance compared to each other, right? So again, the if-then is the most dominant part. It separates the sentence into two big chunks. The first, after the if, and the second part after the then. And then that second part after then is split up into itself two sections, one before the or and one after the or, okay? And so this would be an accurate way to represent symbolically that statement. Okay, now one other example I want to take a look at, and that is writing out a very complicated compound sentence in symbolic form, and then just representing it with a bunch of parentheses and other grouping symbols to make it make more sense. All right, so I'm going to get rid of this statement here. In fact, I'm going to get rid of the P, Q, and R because I'm going to reuse those letters, but I don't want them to represent those three simple statements. All right, so what I'm going to have then is P and Q implies R if and only if P or R. Okay, so again, this is long. I don't actually have a statement to designate as P, Q, or R, and really it doesn't matter. The logical structure of this doesn't change depending upon the statements themselves. Okay, so what I want to do is then regroup this, write it so that you can see the dominance of the different connectives involved. All right, so as we look at this, remember the dominance starts with biconditionals on top, followed by conditionals, followed by conjunction and disjunctions, followed by negations. All right, so we kind of use that order or ranking of dominance. And so the biconditional is most dominant. So that kind of separates off this statement. The conditional is next most dominant, and then you've got your conjunction and disjunction that are last, right? There's no negations in here. Now, when we group these together, we typically go, lowest to highest and putting parentheses around things. So the parentheses often surround the least most dominant because those are the things you do first or understand first. The most dominant connective is the one that's left outside of the parentheses. So I would leave this one outside the parentheses, for instance, biconditional, because that's the most dominant one. What I want to do is, though, start at the bottom. There's no negation, so I'll skip that. The and or, right, the conjunction, disjunction, those are going to get a set of parentheses. Those are the least most dominant part of the sentence or statement. Next, going up the list, is the conditional. Now the conditional has the conjunction and the are on either side of it. So it's if the conjunction, then the statement are. And so that is going to be its own grouping symbol, which I'm going to use brackets, right? Just like in the order of operations in mathematics, you start with parentheses and maybe graduate up to brackets and then braces. So what we're going to do here is just use brackets, just to signify that that is its own part of this sentence. Okay, and then of course we have the biconditional. So here we've established the order of dominance using grouping symbols. Again, the lowest dominance gets parentheses. Next, you would put brackets in there, and that separates everything off appropriately.